is Japan. You know, I'm surprised how close Japan is to my house after all. If you walk over 10 blocks out that way, it's right over there. So you may be wondering what I'm doing here. Well, I'm in the mood for some sushi, but not just any sushi. I want to make it. That's right, I traveled all the way to Japan to find myself a sushi making sensei. And I cracked the code. I found this man from a random manuscript, plus it's free so I might as well be saving some money at the same time, that he will in fact teach me how to make sushi. Yeah, I'm surprised too, a Hispanic sushi chef. But as soon as I find this man, I will be the best sushi making master in no time. You know, in hindsight, cooking raw fish was a bad idea. Japan, aka that one country that produces 2/3 of the consoles you play. Made that 3/4. Sega, originally a console manufacturer, now a third-party developer who's the publisher and dev team behind the Yakuza series. I never grew up with this series up until I want to say 2017 when Yakuza 0 released. I played it, and now I can't stop bitching about Mahjong. Okay, so not a very good starting hand unfortunately, but you got the 3 triplet dots, so it's perfect. As long as you keep that, then you can build up your hand over time and— What the f*** are you doing, Scott? Okay, you know what, whatever, that's fine. You can salvage this. You could perfect— No! Oh my god, do you even know how to play this game? This isn't Tetris! You're not supposed to get rid of your lines! You're supposed to keep them! Yame, por favor! Yeah, Mahjong is fun and all, but it's not as fun as pummeling the crap out of those bad guys and bullies. The Yakuza series is known for its over-dramatic storytelling and equally hilarious side mission, and it's maintained that same balance of gameplay and story, unless you want to play the OG originals.
How many times I gotta tell you, I'm not Yakuza. You retarded or just deaf?
Hey, that's mean! I mean, yes, but you don't need to point it out. Okay, so not all of them are winners. There's a reason why they remade the first 2 Yakuza games, and the reasoning for today's game as well. Like a Dragon, Ishin. At least that's what I want to assume. The actual reason being the game never made it out of Japan in its original PS3 release. So Sega decided to remake the game for the Western audience, and as such, this remake is the first time we get to experience this remake. Why am I putting so much quotation on the word remake? You'll see why. I got the game relatively close to launch, though I gotta admit, it took me forever for this game to get into my hands. No store, whether it was my local Target or Best Buy, had this game in stock, which led me to assume this game is either selling out real quick, or not enough stock was shipped in my area, which hopefully doesn't foreshadow the quality of the game. That's kind of the reason why I ended up with an Xbox copy. The majority of my Yakuza games, actually all of my Yakuza games, are on PlayStation, with the exception of Yakuza 7, Like a Dragon, which I also ran into the same stock issues. I wanted a PS4 copy, but they were all sold out, so I bought an Xbox copy instead. It's fine though, Yakuza 7 can easily rest knowing that he finally has a new brother next to him. Of course, Like a Dragon starts with an L, and Yakuza starts with a Y. How the hell am I supposed to organize this? Plus, I personally like the Xbox controller more than the DualSense controller, so in the end, it still worked out. But wait, Base, you may be asking, what about the PC version? Alright, I have one of those. Yeah, it's too late for that now. I've already committed. Plus, I like me some physical games anyways. I'm not ready to be plugged into the Matrix, damn it! So this game in particular, while keeping the same gameplay, is set in the good old Imperial Japan, starring not Kiryu Kazuma, but a man by the name of Ryoma Sakamoto, who shares the same face as our original main protagonist. This is not a direct descendant, by the way, since Ryoma Sakamoto is a real-life Japanese samurai back in the 19th century. The game does take some liberties to not mimic the exact moments of Ryoma and his acquaintances and comrades' actions and moments, but the setting is still based off of Ryoma's life when he's a part of the Shinsengumi. So for those who are into Japanese history, from what I've seen, this looks like a faithful adaptation to the source material, with the exception of minor changes like Baka Mitai existing. Yep, it's still a Yakuza game in the end of the day, so goofy antics combined with serious moments are still as present as ever. Side missions are plenty, and these are still as funny as ever when they deliver. There are more quantifiable side quests where the majority of the time you'll just deliver a random assortment of items, and they can get pretty tedious to grind out. I'm looking at you in particular, you veggie-loving twerp. Though the context of what items you give doesn't seem to matter too much. Like, I gave this kid who likes to share his toys with his friends some random junk, and he seems too enthusiastic regardless of what I give him. So in celebration of Pride Month, I gave him a rainbow flag. Enjoy this reference while it lasts, because I can guarantee some of you will be pissed in my next review. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the grindy side quests, but the game expects you to do them during your journey rather than all at once, so it won't be too big of a deal if you take your time with them. Otherwise, I still love the majority of the side quests, especially those with an overarching narrative, like this lady who owns a shark loan business or Japan's #1 FedEx game. I should also note this game is not dubbed in English. Yeah, that's a bit of a downside for all you dub watchers out there. After finally getting proper English voice acting with Yakuza 7 and the Judgement series, this game reverts back to having Japanese dub only. I'm indifferent to this. At the very least, considering how this game takes place in old-timey time Japan, it's not that big of an issue, and the original PS3 hardware didn't have the English dub either. But a part of me feels like this is more of a cost-saving measure than a legitimate attempt at hiring more voice actors. If anything, considering this is a remake, they have the Dragon Engine to account for localization, since Yakuza 7 and both Judgement games animate lip-sync for in-game cutscenes, and Yakuza 7 in particular went the extra mile and lip-sync pre-rendered cutscenes to English as well. So why bother with the new engine if you're not going to utilize the tools that you've already proven that you can do? And wait, is that a sprint button in the new engine with stamina? Oh, why? Why did you bring back the stamina mechanic? Oh, so that's why the Unreal logo exists. So it turns out, despite being advertised as a remake, this might actually be a remaster, and I double-checked, triple-checked, and researched multiple game publications and cited wiki articles to check to see if this game was, in fact, a remake or a remaster. But with the exception of some Steam forums and Reddit posts where people are debating of the status of the game's position in terms of what it is, and one article that also goes into dissecting if the game is a true remake or a hybrid. Oh, and don't get me started about the people that say it's just a port, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of feels like that at times. Now, I never played the original Japanese release, so who knows? Maybe it actually is a remake, since the engine that's used in the original PS3 release uses the Havoc engine, and this new re-release /remaster/remake uses Unreal Engine 4. So, hey, there we go. This game is definitively a remake since it's using a different game engine. It's a different game. But why does it feel like I'm playing Yakuza 0 and Kiwami? Sure, by a technical sense, it's a remake, but it doesn't feel distinct enough to be one. I was expecting the Yakuza devs to use the Dragon Engine for this game like they did with Judgement and Yakuza 6, and while not using the same engine as Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami, if I didn't know about the engine change, I would have assumed they went back to the old engine for this game and released it as it is. Okay, surely while the gameplay and game feel near identical to older Yakuza titles, surely there's more to it than just the game feel, and you know what? I will say for the graphics, it looks beautiful. At the very least, it does look like a PlayStation 4 game, but bumped up to 60 frames per second. Which, hey, I'm honestly perfectly fine for that. The next-gen hardware kind of disappointed me with its graphic fidelity, so at the very least, if the frame rate is consistent, then it's perfectly fine. And if we're comparing this to the PlayStation 3 footage, I do think the graphics look really good, and there are some quality of life improvements from textures and character models to distinguish it from the original PS3 footage. Again, I don't think the graphics pushes the boundaries of what the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X can offer, but since the frame rate is consistent and the SSD loading times are near to non-existent, performance-wise, this game looks gorgeous and feels fluid. With some exceptions. So there will be some times where the frame rate dips, especially doing this electrical move. I'll explain in a later point how Ryoma manages to channel into his dark side. These are the only moments where the frame rate would dip below 30 or even worse. The attack is just way too strong in conjunction with the amount of enemies on screen. The cutscenes do lower down to 24 frames a second, but I do want to believe that's more of a cinematic experience. The only downside I can see is that for a split frame, you can notice that not everything is rendered properly. Low textures for character models, wardrobes, and background scenery for about 1 or 2 frames. It doesn't overstay for too long, but it is noticeable. Really should have bought that PC version, huh? Oh, hey, it looks like that Majima's character is in the game too. So going back to the character models, they do reuse the same character models and voice actors for the majority of the characters you meet. And oh boy, is there a wormhole of discussion to be held with this inclusion. So, your character is played by Kiryu, and your father figure, Yoshida Toya, is played by Kazuma's actor, who is also the father of Kiryu in the original games. See, neat references like that I absolutely adore. I think it's a neat cost-saving measure to harken back to the references of your series, while at the same time portray your new game with familiar territory. Even if they are supposed to be different characters, it's kind of like a stage show in a way, where all the Yakuza characters themselves are actors and the setting around them is their play. There's even a detective character Naokauka whose actor and face model is the same as Date, your crazy companion who's obsessed with everything about you, Soji Okita, played by Majima's actor, the information broker slash bathkeeper named Sai, who's, well, the florist of Sai. Hey look, if you got the same personality, might as well share the same name as well. Oh god, this entire bath sequence too, with Saigo who's played by Ryuji. Am I allowed to even show this? Hey look, I'm an equal opportunistic gender appreciator, and two sweaty manly men slapping each other's asses in the bathhouse is, pun fully intended, hot. If you want to see some anime titties, just wait for my Atlier Ryza reviews. All of these characters fit the role since these are characters that match the personality and character to their Yakuza counterparts, and this is something that feels divisive for me, because when well done, they enhance the experience and remind you that this is in fact a Yakuza game, but when you put faces on random characters all willy-nilly, then you get one of my biggest gripes with this game. Meet Takechi Hunpeita, and this character is your brother. That ain't our brother, that's our final boss for Yakuza 0. This character model with this character doesn't fit at all with the personality trait. Hunpeita is supposed to be an honorable political figure who's also a formidable samurai and an ambitious leader to the Loyalist Party, but his actor in Yakuza 0 is one of the three major antagonists who works more so in the background until his encounter. So, literally the opposite of that. And granted, I'll give some leeway in the looks department since it's stated that your character is adopted, so likeness and facial features won't need to be aligned, but that just makes things worse in terms of characters they could have used. There is a character model that would fit perfectly into the role of Hunpeita, and his name is Nishiki, damn it! On top of being another adopted brother in the original games, this would fit perfectly to the dynamic and tone of Ryoma's and Takechi's struggles between each other, since it would mirror Kiryu's and Nishiki's struggles. Instead, Nishiki is played by Okada, a henchman character. A crazy and unhinged character admittedly, but come on. Nishiki wasn't this unhinged in the games. There are some parts of humanity in him in 0 and Kiwami 1, and this is unfortunately not the only example. We got practically the entirety of the Shinsengumi roster and supporting characters from side quests and main quests that also have the same issue, with the exception of Shinpachi, Toshizo, Inoue, and the two innkeepers, Oryo and Otose, who admittedly is mostly because I forgot about these characters in the original Yakuza games. I mean, when it comes to female characters, Yakuza tends to not put them onto the spotlight. In fact, I say this straight up. Female characters are not that memorable unless you're Makoto or Haruka. Or this chick. I don't remember her name, but I think she was memorable. She dipped like after one more game and never came back, so I don't know, I guess the developers forgot her too. Although I think Oreo is supposed to be Makoto, but either the voice actor sounds different or has a damn good range because she doesn't sound like Makoto at all. Also, if this is honestly really Makoto, dick move Kiryu, that's Majima's girl right there, and you're going to do him dirty by dating her? Good God, life is already NTRing Majima enough. I'm not into it, damn it! For the other three Shinsengumi characters, again, no recollection of who they are. Like, is Inoue this Chinese assassin from Yakuza 0? No? Yeah, that may be a stretch, but either way, I don't remember his face, so I feel like he's one of the original characters, rather than a face swap of another. Shinpachi kinda looks like Saejima, but the haircut is definitely throwing me off. And Toshizo? The only thing I recognize about this man face is how beautiful he is. Like, damn boy, you so hot, you make the sun look jealous. Girl, what's your secret? How many lotion bottles per day? Are you wearing makeup? Simply put, the easiest way to look gorgeous. How the f*** do you use this thing? Is this like a freaking paint? Do I have to just paint myself? It's not even my skin color, is it? That's not even my skin color! If any of these characters appear in Yakuza 5 or 6, maybe I'll recognize them, but otherwise, they might either be NPC characters or one-off characters I don't remember. Oh yeah, that's another thing I should also note. Out of all the Yakuza games I've experienced, I've played 0 through 4, and then jumped into Like a Dragon and the 2 Judgement games. So the only games I have not yet played are Yakuza 5 and 6, so maybe their character models appear in one of those 2 games. But despite that, I think me not remembering these characters' faces in the original Yakuza games actually is more of a benefit because it makes them feel like original characters. Everyone else I see, I keep imagining them as characters from previous Yakuza games, and it feels off-putting. Todo Heisuke, who's played by Zhao's actor, is supposed to be Chinese in the Yakuza games, but is now Japanese in this game. So if we were going by the ancestry angle, then this is some interesting race swapping they're doing. But if we are to relate this character in terms of personality and character, he's not. Zhao is the comic relief of Yakuza 7, and in this game, he's nerdy, I think. And that goes nearly the same for everyone else as well. Kondo Isami, the leader of the Shinsengumi, that dude's a dachi, a security guard. Yamazaki Susumu, the homeless informant, he's the Korean dude, Jungi Han, which on top of being another character that is race swap, look-wise doesn't even fit to the 19th century setting. Was hair dye invented back then, or am I to believe that this dude's natural hair color is bright white? And this was an addition that was added to the remake. The original PS3 models didn't utilize the same character models. Sure, some do, but there were some exceptions that fit into the role, with the exception of Nishiki. Seriously, why do they make him such an edgelord? The ones they are added feels way too forced to the point that instead of being a fan service to the player, it feels like pandering rather than a love letter. Maybe I'm under the wrong mindset, but I don't think the characters face swap were necessary at all for the remake. It would have made more sense and more original if they used original character models. I don't know, maybe there was an actor strike, or maybe the actors were high on cocaine. That's the reason why Mr. Olaf here changed his face mid-development in Judgement, right? I remember Yakuza 4 had to change the face for one of the playable characters due to licensing, so maybe this was a way to fix that issue?
Don't get me wrong, I don't think the face swap is completely unjustified. After all, there's equally more than enough characters with face swap models that do fit. But it also makes generic NPCs way more noticeable. The Yakuza series always had this issue, but I feel it's even worse in this game. On top of the adult NPCs being generic and uninteresting, the kids literally have the same faces and body structure. The kid that likes veggies? I wouldn't be surprised if that's the same kid that I taught the power of gay to. And I know they're not obligated to face swap NPCs since they're supposed to be generic and boring. But then why bother with the loan shark chick who's a face swap of this badass woman that teaches you the beast style in Yakuza 0? I'll tell you why. Cause she's f***ing awesome. Both her in this game and Yakuza 0 are great representations of her character. I just expected the same for some of the NPCs as well. If they wanted to pursue more of these face swaps, there's this side quest of two best friends who you can infer have a romantic relationship with. But they had generic kids for the role when Yakuza had plenty of kids to work with the orphanage. They have two characters already hinted at a relationship with Mitsuo and Renoa. These two would fit nicely with the dynamic of their hinted relationship and parallel to the tragedy of how these two are forced to be separated. Now, you may counter with the fact that Mitsuo is of African descent, which is unrealistic to the setting of Ishin. But they're already f***ed up with the Chinese and Korean dude. What's one black kid gonna make a difference? Instead, the only face model for a child character they did bother was Haruka, because of course they would. Alright, what real life figure is she supposed to represent?
Haruka to iimasu.
Haruka ka.
Okay, I'll give you that one. If you're gonna copy someone's face, might as well take their entire identity as well. Alright, so we talked about the characters, but what do they do? Well, the story begins alongside the members of the Loyalist Party. With the help of your brother and father, you are an honorary member. But you still gotta build trust, and one guy in particular really has a hard-on for wanting you to beat it. Alright, our first battle with Okada Izo. Time to test his mantle.
You weak, pathetic fool.
I think now is a good time to bring up the combat. Oh man, such a challenge. The idea of pressing the X button over and over again is just too gigantic of a hurdle for my monkey brain. So you have 4 different stances. Brawler stance, sword stance, gun stance, and gun and sword stance. Brawler is like your traditional Yakuza combat. You use your fist to beat everyone up. Sword is a more long-range brawler stance that deals more damage. It kind of feels like using a sword will grant better results than punching your enemies, but the drawback is that the parry window is more tighter, whereas with brawler, parrying is a lot more easier. And then we have gun. I'd like to remind you that Ryoma's never killed a man. You shoot using the X button, and you have special ammunition with the Y button, with regular ammo doing less damage than sword or fist attacks, and special ammo, depending on the property, can cause shock, burn, poison, etc. The downside of utilizing the stance is the lack of a block or parry button, but that really doesn't matter when you have a long-range projectile with infinite ammo. Using gun completely breaks the game since you can literally shoot everything, and the majority of your opponents will have stun properties and never even touch you once. And even if they do get close to you, you have a better dodge button since shooting after a dodge extends your dodge window. And even more so, you can infinite enemies with this mechanic too, including boss fights. Yep, no more Yakiyama, you just keep staying there, and we need to make this look as convincing as possible.
次に敵を見逃すときはもっとわからんようにうまくやれ。
Bruh, I really just shot him like 99 times. How much more convincing can you get? So yeah, gun just breaks the game completely and objectively makes the game way more easier than it needs to be. That really ruins the gameplay experience for me. Yakuza games had crafted fight sequences where if you are outnumbered or even if your opponent is up to par with you in terms of combat, you feel strong when you take on a horde of multiple enemies at the same time. You feel fulfilling when you exploit the weaknesses of your opponent's attack strings and dodges. You don't really feel that when you have a gun. And sure, you can try to just play the game with other styles, and admittedly, that does make the combat more fun, since I think the game is intended for you to play in a sword stance style, since your other opponents also uses swords, although in some raw cases, they will use their fists instead. And when you're forced into situations like these, it can be pretty intense and engaging, but with the exception of those rare instances, you can just shoot away. Like the honorable samurai cowboy you are. Oh yeah, and your force stance where you get to wield both sword and gun at the same time. You see, this is actually my preferred way to fight. You still don't have a block button, but you do dodge a lot more faster than the other forms. You can't use special ammo anymore, which is fine because guess what? Gun is not as broken in this mode. They nerfed the speed of the gun so that your aim is a lot more calculated rather than gung-ho, and honestly, this is my favorite style to fight in. It's not too broken, you still get the advantage of a long-range projectile, but you still get the defensive and offensive maneuverabilities of your sword as well. Overall, if I had the choice to want to have fun, playing the game using sword or a combination of sword and gun would be my preferred playstyle, since I think most of the game's boss fights are designed with that playstyle in mind. Fist is unfortunately too weak and pitiful to be viable in gun. Well, that's just cheating the system. Seriously, you should not be able to beat the boss fight by mashing the X button. What is this, Final Fantasy 13? Yeah, I went there, I got hot takes. But what about the enemy variety? Well, you got enemies with swords, enemies with guns. And then there's these chunky f***s. Jesus Christ, how many gallons of milk have you been drinking? I can handle everyone else since dealing with them is a fine enough experience, and for the times where I can cheese through it, I can do so. With these guys? Not very good level design. This issue is definitely exacerbated by the end of the game where they bombard you with everything they got. Alright, well, going back to the story, you are enacted to the Loyalist Party, and you have a plan set up to take over Tosa. The only problem is, our dad died. You know, I shouldn't say that I didn't expect this, but this is a Yakuza game after all. I got a gut feeling that whoever has the face swap in the original Yakuza games that died will probably die in this game as well. Look, I haven't played the majority of the Yakuza series. It's pretty much expected that some of these guys will be dead. If anything, it'll be more of a twist if no one dies in these games. Mostly from people outside Ryoma's fist or sword staffs because, again, Ryoma has never killed a man. It was a mysterious assassin who uses the Renshin sword style. We also get blamed by the local guards as the murderer and force ourselves in exile in order to avenge our father. 1 year has passed and we live in this remote city called Kyo, under the pseudonym Saito Hajima. Thanks to the help of our local information brokers, our target is somewhere inside the Shinsengumi, the police force of the town of Kyo. So in order to find our target and kill him to enact our revenge, we become one with the Shinsengumi and try out for the part. Our skill with the sword impressed the majority of the members, and after a few tasks with some individual ones, we got our blue uniform. All the while, oh hey, it's Izo, you're back. Well, it looks like you're ready for a fight again, and after 1 year, he's surely got new tactics up his sleeves. Don't worry, 'tis a flesh wound. Thanks to the fight, we finally meet up with our brother after 1 year of exile, but it's not a happy reunion. Ryoma has set his sights on revenge, but Takechi has already moved past his revenge and wants a better Japan. Two different ideals under the same brotherhood and honor of the father that fell before them. So we take our own path and join the Shinsengumi, and this is where we meet the Yakuza. I mean our compatriots. Half of them are gonna die, but don't worry, it's not by our hands though. And much like previous Yakuza games, ignoring the brutality of the gameplay, the story always has Ryoma in a more pacifist light, whereas the killing is done around him are because of his comrades or antagonists. Now, taking in account to the brutality of the gameplay, wow, I didn't realize Ryoma was also a ninja under his belt. Okay, so troopers. They exist. I don't know how to feel about them. You get a different troop member to aid you in your fight, and each one of them having special unique abilities and able to help you in various stat buffs and attacks, like healing over time, or more damage to your sword, or Hadouken. In a spectacle sense, yeah, they're kinda cool, but to my knowledge, you can't really disable them on a whim. The best you can do is unequip them, but in the case where you do want to have them available, but don't want to use them immediately, well, tough shit. They automatically activate when their meter is full. What if I want to use my unlimited power on a boss fight or a horde of enemies, instead of just 1 or 2 basic enemies? Well, tough luck. You should have gained your meter at the time, rather than any time. When you also finish the tutorial, you get 6 of these max level troopers as well, and oh my god, what am I looking at? Okay, well, first off, who are you people? Mostly for dramatic effect. I at least recognize Alex Mokala. It's kinda cool to see my favorite bassist in a video game. But what the hell are you doing in Yakuza? And for that matter, why are you guys in Yakuza? Yeah, this really caught me in a whiplash. I feel like I shouldn't be using these characters due to how broken they are, and the game gives them away for free? Man, on top of having the unsettling face swap for characters, now there's a VTuber in the Shinsengumi too? When was that in the history books? Where the hell was the chapter in my Asian studies class where Hatsune and Miku fought against the shoguns? I mean, at least they're optional, unlike this entire mechanic. Oh, hey, Izo, this is like, what, the 3rd time you encountered us? You guys remember in Skyward Sword fighting that one gigantic Bigfoot monster over and over and over again? Yeah, this is just like that. Well, no worries. Nothing like a little Second Amendment would solve that. You know, you gotta change your tactics a little, dude. On to our next target, where we had to eliminate another member of the Loyalist Party by the name of Sakamoto Ryoma? So there is someone that is impersonating us, and it's our job to take him down. And it turns out that the real Sakamoto Ryoma is us. Alright, well, more importantly, the main leader, Kono Isami, already knew from the start that he was Sakamoto Ryoma, and that he knows the identity of our father's killer. And then we beat him up. Yeah, let's not forget about our original intent. We take care of Kono, but because his fighting style wasn't as fierce as we deemed him to be, he is not the killer. Of course, Kono wants Ryoma's true identity to be a secret, so he agrees to keep it since it benefits him and the Shinsengumi. The same thing happens with Okita. Damn, dude, you're really not good at this whole secret identity thing, are you? He knows about Ryoma's true intentions after the death of a fellow Shinsengumi member, and he seeks revenge. But before that, we find the fake Ryoma's location and his current residence at the local inn that we live in. After escorting some Shinsengumi to retreat, we warn the inhabitants, including Oreo, that we will raid the place and things could get bloody. But then... So Oreo betrays us, and it's a quick haste to find the fake Sakamoto. But after our bout with him, we slash a piece of his article to reveal a scar that looks similar to our brother. That's right, Hanpeta was the fake Sakamoto all along. This entire chapter took 4 hours. Yeah, but it looks like I'm skimming through most of the story. That's because I am. The death of certain characters or the journey to discovery of each chapter's ending isn't really all that impactful, nor does it really progress through the actual story. Like, it turns out Inoue is the one who killed our father, but we don't get to enact our revenge. It just sort of happened off screen, and it doesn't get resolved until this chapter, where we find out that Hanpeta was Ryoma. It was the fake Sakamoto that in fact killed Inoue. So in a way, the revenge was enacted, just under the same pseudonym of a different character. So after that antic of funness, we got to ensure the future of Japan, and to do that, We need to get past the Shogun. Give him a message to reform the Japanese government, and it's thanks to Kondo and his sophisticated writing style, we get kicked out immediately from the capital. So I'd say f*** it and barge into the castle Unga Bunga style. The Shogun is more than impressed by our action, and as the battle against him, and a fair and honorable one mind you, we've officially sent the message to him and the rest is history. We return to our base operation of Kyo and oh! Well, it looks like I'm not the only one that burned something today. Anarchy reigns within Kyo, and trying to contact some Shinsengumi members, it looks like as though some have defected and embraced the chaos. Everything, every store, home livelihood, man, woman, and child, in flames. Except for that Don Quixote. Damn, is that building flame retardant? Was fire-resistant wood existent back then? We follow on to the red light district and oh shit! Adachi, no! So here's one of the exceptions to the death rule. Adachi never died in the game he was introduced in, which is actually the most recent mainland game. So him dying is certainly a surprise for me. Either that, or it's a foreshadow that he'll die in Yakuza 8. I really hope that's not the case because I really love this man. Not him again. Izo is back. Let's just get this over with. The following day, everything is back to normal. Well, wait, everything's back to normal? Damn, the people in Japan really work quick. After the following meeting, we have Kuze, who accidentally admitted to the murder of Kondo. Yes, I know he has an actual name, but it's hard to remember when his face is f***ing Kuze. And Aku starts out with 3 former members of the Shinsengumi starting a new branch of military named the Goryo. Lucky for us, there's actually an imposter among them since Todo is actually a double agent. So with him on the outside, we'll be able to take down the Goryo from the inside out. Then he gets caught and promptly executed. You know what's bad when I had to agree with the bad guys? The Shinsengumi is a f***ing joke. So this is what I mean when I said 2 exceptions. In Yakuza 7, Adachi and Zhao never died in their games, but they did in this one. Which, ironically enough, Rintaro, who's played by Arakawa's actor, he died in that game, but he's still alive in this game. He's also one of the most useless inclusion in the game. Like, seriously, he exists? He's supposed to be Hanpeita's second hand, and that's it? God, I swear, some of these characters are just missed opportunities. Speaking of which, it turns out that the fake Ryoma is, in fact, Hanpeita. Oh my god, I will never guess. It wasn't flat out confirmed in the previous cutscenes, more so hinted, but here's our confirmation, and it was totally not a surprise at all. The finale chapter. Thank god. I'm gonna be honest, the story was taking way too longer than I anticipated, and I just kinda wanted it to end. The remaining Shinsengumi members, Ryoma Sakamoto, Okita Soji, Nagakura Shintachi, and Hajikata Toshizo, storm back to Sakamoto's hometown of Tosa, barricaded like the monstrous fortress it is. This gauntlet of battles, and after boss fights, all of them being on an epic proportion until White Man appeared. Fuck this battle. I guess this is karma for me relying on gun too much, but holy f***, being on the other end is equally not as fun. I will say though, the final boss against her brother, I like it. It's a fair bit challenging, utilizing the best abilities of what you train for, and in the end, the bigger, badder Yodo reveals his big bad plan that's swiftly ruined by Ryoma totally not killing him. Hey look, the screen turned black, we don't know what happened. The game ends with our old heroes and our brother discarding their old identities for a new one. Takechi now changing his identity to Yamauchi Yodo. Shintaro, who actually survived the confrontation, how? Writing a biography of Ryoma Sakamoto's life, and Ryoma living his newly found life with Oreo, who wasn't even his real life wife in, well, real life. Okay, to be fair, the cutscene is vaguely platonic enough that not a whole lot is bloomed, but come on. They've gotta fuck at some point, right? Make some babies already. As for the remaining 3 Shinsengumi members, I don't know. The story never ended properly, there was no epilogue or cutscene during the credits. I got a result screen and it was at this moment I found out I was playing on hard difficulty. So that explains why this game might have felt unnecessarily challenging. And you know, besides. Yeah, you get the idea. So, that was Like a Dragon Ishin, and I don't know if I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I have to be honest with myself. this is the weakest in the series.
I smell a hot take!
The entire story of Ishin is the equivalent of consuming junk food. It's entertaining still, but it just goes on and on and on to the point of obesity. Looking at my footage, I clocked in about 30 hours into the game, and I can easily say that a quarter of them was padding, another half was messing around with minigames and side quests, which means the last quarter was from the actual game. Granted, I still have a fun time, but after dealing with the same side quest over and over again, beating some dudes over and over again, and going from point A to point B over and over again, just to do things like give items to an NPC or beat up more bad guys, the only way for this game to make up for the repetitive grindfest is if the story was good. It's fine. I'm being all nonchalant about it, but it's really how I could sum up my experience. It's just fine. It works. I think if you're a Yakuza fan, you'll like it. In fact, I did enjoy it, but at the same time, I just wanted to finish the game, and when I thought I was close, the game kept going and going. I mean, sure, it's a side game, so I shouldn't be expecting a whole lot, but if the remake is going to launch for $60, I expect the quality of said asking price. If it's truly a remake, it should have used the Dragon engine, because we're using the same engine, and yes, even if it technically does use a different engine, it feels like old Yakuza engine. The combat wasn't all that satisfactory or pleasing, the changing character models feels more forced and fan service, but despite all that, I still enjoyed the dramatic story. There are some things to have fun with this game. It's just what is fun is not enough for me to fully enjoy this game.
Which is why my final verdict for Like a Dragon Ishin is a 30 out of 60. You can still have fun with this game, or at the very least, retain some enjoyment you had when you played the previous Yakuza games, but it's not something that you should start off with, or honestly the one that upholds the same quality standards as what I define a Yakuza game.
This is the type of game where you wait for a sale to drop before playing it. It's not worth the $60 I spent. The content definitely feels bloated and unnecessary, but at the very least, it keeps the core and spirit of Yakuza. In fact, you still get the hilarious moments, the dramatic, intense atmosphere, and when you're not worrying about the lack of gameplay mechanics, it's still an enjoyable ride throughout the story. Which is why, despite my price recommendation being half, I'm still willing to give this game a 7 out of 10. It's still a good game. In fact, I will say this straight up. Despite being my least favorite Yakuza game, it's still a good game. It's something that most Yakuza fans will enjoy regardless. I wouldn't recommend jumping into it as your first Yakuza game, but at the very least, it's worth trying out when you get your hands on it.
I would like to stress once again that I think I'm in the minority of this. The majority of the reception I've seen for this game has been relatively positive for Yakuza fans, and you know what? If it's acceptable for them, then I think it's a well done experience. Why do I smell like I'm well done?